Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Today you're going to be learning about using Photoshop and Premiere together. My name is Adrian Kay, and with over 14 years video editing experience, I've decided to share a little bit of what I know. The purpose of today's video is going to be showing us how to change something that looks like this into something far more professional looking like this. Alright, let's jump into Premiere and Photoshop today and see how it's all done. Here we are in the sequence in Premiere. I have dropped a little bit of stock drone footage of this person walking around through the sand dunes. That looks really nice, and our aim is to put a logo on this screen and drop it down to the corner over here. But we're going to do it in a way that makes things look interesting. So I'm going to jump across to Photoshop. Now you can see I've already got a logo loaded into here. It's the Premiere logo. Now what might happen is you can find logos without backgrounds always, PNGs. People might send you these for projects. That's great. Sometimes you're in a hurry, whatever the case may be, you have to find a logo on Google or go to a website even and cut one out, and you end up with something like this with white backgrounds, and you need to take care of that. First of all, what I'm going to do is save it as a Photoshop document. Control-Shift-S, and as you can see I already have it saved here. It want to replace it? No, that's fine. I already have it saved from before, so I can get rid of that. Because in Premiere we can work with Photoshop documents. Now this is a really great way of being able to manipulate things throughout your project. So I shall go to my file, drag that into my media folder. Now it's going to ask me which layers, because obviously Photoshop documents come in different layers. Now there's only one layer so far, so that's all I'm going to import, and it's merging all the layers. All right, I can drag that, put it on top of my clip, stretch it out to fill the whole clip, and that is what that looks like. I can jump back to Photoshop, and I can take my magic wand tool. There it is, and I click on the white. And as you can see, it highlights around all the white area, and I can quite simply press delete. And then you get this checkerboard area behind, which is transparency. I can press Control D to deselect. And now we've lost that background. So I shall press Save, Control S. That has now refreshed that document in my folders. I jump back to Premiere, and we should see, there we go. The white has disappeared. We now have a very clean looking logo. I might want to take that another step further. Let's jump back to Photoshop, and let's say I want to make the letters transparent so we can see the video through them. So I'm going to click on this color. Now as you can see, it would only select the P, but I want the R as well. I could do it in two separate moves, or I can right click here and it gives me similar. So I'll collect anything similar within the image, and of course the R is the similar color. Now I can right click on this and say layer via cut. Now what that does up here is, instead of us just deleting it like we did the white background, which we definitely want rid of, it gives us the option to turn it off or turn it on, so we can always change our mind later. For now I'm going to turn it off. Before I do anything else, I must save, Control S. That's applied the changes to the saved document in my folders. Jump back to Premiere, and within a second, there we go. We can now see through those letters. And if I play the clip, there we go. We can do more. I can just, as an example, if I click on Photoshop again, I turn this layer back on, Control S, save, back to Premiere, and within a second or two you see the letters come back. So this is great. So whatever we do throughout the project, wherever we move the logo or whatever we do with the logo, we can always modify it later. You might send it to a client and they say, no, I don't want the transparency. You say, no problem, click of a button, you've brought it back and fixed it. Easy peasy. So for me, I do want it transparent. And something else, maybe we want to add, make the colors look a bit more interesting. So maybe I could add a gradient. So I can double click on layer 1 over here, double click, and we get all our layer style options. I'm going to go down to the gradient overlay I can click in there to turn it on, or just click on there simply. Now you must make sure when you're in the layer style options that you are highlighting the layer that you're working with, the layer style, sorry, that you're working with. As you can see, this is set up as I had it previously, but what you can do is you're able to click on the gradient and choose different ones, whatever you like the look of. Now, something too bright would not work. We can change colors. There's purples if we want to go purples. I don't think that's going to work really, but I'm going to go back to the blues because that is our original kind of Adobe color. I quite like that one, a dark blue, but what we can do is click inside the gradient tab here, and this gives us the option to move the dark blue across more, as you can see. Yeah, and I can change this light blue color. If I click here, you'll see that it gives us the option here to change it, and I'm going to take it to a slightly darker. So it's a much more subtle gradient. I can press OK there. Oops, sorry, OK there, OK there. And the other thing we can do is change the direction of the gradient, as you can see. That actually looks quite effective like that. I'm going to leave it like that. OK. Once again, we mustn't forget to save. Control S. Back over to Premiere. And there we have it. It jumps to the latest edit. Coming up in the rest of the video, we're going to be looking more at how to use keyframes to manipulate the logo in Premiere. And if you're enjoying the video so far, please like, subscribe and share. This helps me and the channel out loads, and it's going to allow us to continue this and bring you more tutorials over the coming months. So from here, I want to manipulate this logo with some motion and scale and make it look a lot more interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to using keyframes in the effect controls up here. Now, if you've been watching my previous videos, you'll be starting to understand more about keyframing. I'm going to move us to about this position in the clip. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm not going to use the motion scale and position to start with. I'm going to use transform down here in the effects pane. I type in here transform. There it goes, video effects, distort and transform. Drop that onto the logo. Now we have to do this in order to make the crop work, which we'll be doing after. It doesn't work if we use the motion. We have to use the transform. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to click the keyframe on, toggle animation. Like I say, if you've watched my previous videos, you'll be understanding this by now. That's now giving us a keyframe at the location where the logo is now. So I am going to pull back a few frames. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop the position down almost off the screen, but as long as it's out of the way of where the logo originally was. So now what's going to happen between those two keyframes is it will move up the screen like that. Now I'm going to add crop. So again, down to the effects pane, type crop. There it is. Drop it onto there as well. Now it's very important that crop is below everything, below transform. There it is. Now the crop, if I click on here, you'll see where it is. By default, it's just the size of the logo. So what is going to happen if I move back these keyframes here, you'll see it moves back down and it moves out of the cropped zone and disappears. So we'll see what will happen here if I play this. It comes up out of nowhere, which is a nice little effect. Now we can always take this further, as you know now with the keyframes. If I drop this position down here and right click on that keyframe and we come down to temporal and we can ease in. Now you can see that now bends much nicer instead of being an abrupt effect. Right click on this one and also ease out, And now we can see it's a much smoother motion. If I play that through, hard to see. And again, I can do things like stretching this out. Again, if you've watched my previous tutorials, this is going to make a lot more sense now. But you can see the way that... sorry, let me just do this. There we go. You can see now the motion that this thing takes. So it starts off quick, and then it slows down into place. Okay, so next, I am wanting this thing to move down into the corner. This time, we are going to use the motion effects up here, because if I was to use position down here, let's just move across a little bit. By example, if I move that, it's going to move out of the crop frame again. So let me just undo that. I don't want it to do that. I want everything to move, the crop and everything. So I'm coming up here to position. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do is immediately here, after we have our full-size logo, is I'm going to click on Scale, Toggle Animation, and Position. So that freezes us where we are here. And I'm going to move just a couple of frames. It wants to be fairly quick. I'm going to drop the scale down to maybe something like that. I'm going to move it all the way down to the bottom. Not all the way, but close. And I'm going to move it across to this corner here. So as we can see, this now looks like this. Much nicer. But again, the first motion is very smooth and nice. The second one, a bit clunky. So now you should be understanding how we can work this. There is the clunkiness of that motion. Okay, what we can do is I'm going to highlight both of these keyframes as it settles down into the corner. I'm going to temporal and we're going to ease in. And as you can see, it gives us the smoother arc. So already that's going to be a massive improvement. Now that for me is nice. I might even slow it down a bit, to be honest. That's a bit quick. I'm just going to drag these two keyframes across. You saw how I did that. Highlight them and just simply drag them, and we'll slow that motion down a little bit. Now, one other thing I might want to do here, because this is quite bright on top of this footage, is I might want to make it more transparent so it's a lot more subtle. It's still there, but a lot more subtle. We could start the transparency from here, or maybe once we've arrived at our destination down in the corner, maybe that is where, I'll just close these, maybe that is where I will go down to the opacity. Okay, and I will toggle that animation on there. Once again, we get a keyframe. I move across a couple of frames, and you're probably not even going to notice this happening, but I'm going to drop that down quite considerably. I'm going down around 60 there, and you can see that this has now become see-through. So it's there, but we can see the footage through it, so it's very subtle. Maybe, now I'm looking at that, maybe those colors don't work so well. So this is why we used Photoshop. I can go back to Photoshop now and decide I don't like the gradient overlay. I'm going to go back to the effects here. I can just simply turn them off. And we're back to the original Premiere color. Control, save. Back across to Premiere. And in a second, it's come back to its original color. And the entire thing now looks like this. There we go. Now on reflection, I actually do think it should start going transparent from here at the beginning of the motion. So I'm going to move this keyframe to there. And I'm going to move this keyframe to there. So simple. Now it does this. Much smoother, much smoother. Now, as always, please leave your comments down below, any tips or tricks you might have in order to make this easier, or different ways of doing things. As I always say, there are so many different techniques to be used in Photoshop and Premiere to get to the same results. And if you missed my previous tutorial, which was talking about zooming in on a clip and moving it around, you can watch that just over here. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.